They wear robes, they speak in Latin, they cite precedent in careful measured prose, and they have systematically dismantled every constitutional protection you thought you had, not out of ignorance, out of intention.
Judges are not neutral arbiters, they are philosopher kings, unelected, unaccountable, armed with the most dangerous weapon the state possesses. The pen that makes oppression legal when the state cages you. The judge doesn't ask whether the Cajun was just the judge, asks whether you have standing when the officer beats you. The judge doesn't ask whether it was constitutional, the judge asks whether the right was clearly established. The violence disappears in judicial opinions, what remains is procedure, doctrine, the careful architecture of your defeat. They are not failing to protect you.
They are protecting the state from you. You were told you have the right to petition for redress. The First Amendment says so. What they didn't tell you, the forum itself is the trap. The moment you enter it, you accept judicial authority. You submit to rules that favor the state. You allow judges, state employees to decide whether the state violated your rights. And when you lose, the system points to your participation as evidence that justice was done. The forum doesn't exist to give you justice. It exists to manufacture the appearance of justice for predetermined outcomes. That is its only function. The Constitution contains no grant of immunity to state officials. Read it, find it. It is not there. Qualified immunity invented. Absolute prosecutorial immunity invented. Sovereign immunity invented. Judicial immunity. Judges protected themselves first, most completely, without apology. They wrote their own immunity with their own pens in their own courts and called it law. The Seventh Amendment, your right to a jury trial, eliminated through summary judgment. The Ninth Amendment, unenumerated right shall not be denied, rendered invisible, a nullity as if it does not exist. The 13th Amendment, involuntary servitude prohibited, gutted. Anything labeled a civic duty escapes scrutiny, amendment by amendment, clause by clause, case by case. The systematic surgical dismantlement of every constitutional constraint on state power. The courts will not recognize that you did not consent to be born. The courts will not recognize that the social contract is a fiction. The courts will not recognize that the state owns your life, even though Glucksberg said exactly that, because doing so would require courts to declare their own authority illegitimate. No institution declares itself illegitimate. The judiciary is not the remedy for life slavery. It is one of its primary architects. They swore an oath to the Constitution. They dismantled. They took salaries from the state, whose victims they were sworn to protect. They wrote elegant opinions, explaining why your oppression is lawful, why your captivity is constitutional. And they signed their names to it. Philosopher kings in robes with pensions, building your architecture of your enslavement, one opinion at a time.
Hi everybody, I'm going to try to get to this live stream. Hopefully I won't have any technical issues like I did the last time. Today I'm going to talk about how I am tired of judges not following the law. I addressed this in my book in chapter 4. I explained all of the procedural tools that they have to evade the law. And for those of you who haven't read my book, yeah, I think chapter 4 is going to be helpful. I think for whatever reason, because people don't really understand how the legal system works, the critique that I received was that my book was too legalistic. I can't really help that because the law really dictates everything. So if you don't understand the law, you basically need to learn it. You need to learn how the system actually works, because nobody's really exempt. These laws do control your life. I know most people just accept state authority. They don't even question it. They don't even understand the legitimacy of it. What is the source of the state's power? Sorry, y'all. By the way, before I continue, let me just let y'all know I did have my surgery on my nose, so I do have a lot of blood and pus and all kind of nasty stuff going on right now, but I'm going to try to get through this live stream. So most people just assume that the law is legitimate on its face. They watch Judge Judy. Judge Judy seems like a boss. By the way, Judge Judy is not even a real judge. She's an arbiter, or she's a arbitrator. Excuse me. Those are not. That's not a real court. That is arbitration. For those of you who heard my discussion with Judge Joe Brown, he admitted that it was arbitration, and I was giving him kudos for admitting it and not calling it court. And then he got defensive and saying, "Oh, it is a real arbitration under the legal statute." I know what the hell it is. By the way, I'm a certified arbiter. I haven't actually arbitrated any cases, but I have been certified. I'm also a mediator. So I know the system very well. So you're conditioned to basically accept authority, right? You see somebody wearing a robe, they're sitting on a bench, and for whatever reason, people just think that they're always right. I actually had a juror tell me this, and I was trying to get her struck for cause, but the judge wouldn't do it. So I used one of my best intelligence or peremptory. Excuse me, I got it backwards. Because she literally said that judges get the law right all the time, and I'm like, no, of course they don't. That's why they get reversed on appeal. And then she backtracked and she said, "Oh, well, I think they try to get it right. Like they have good intentions." No, the hell they don't. I don't want you sitting on my damn jury. You don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I think that is the way most people think about it. So this whole psychology about the colors of their robes, about how they elevate their bench, the whole, all rise and all that bullshit, all these ceremonial procedures that happen. And it's all performative. It's all theater. It makes it look authoritative, like they're actually doing something, important. They're not. And by the way, you refer to them as Your Honor. Have you even demonstrated that you're honorable? No. But the title, their position in society automatically comes with them being honorable, even if they don't demonstrate that they're honorable. It's so disgusting. You pay all these fees, right? And if you're wealthy, then this probably isn't going to be a big deal. But by the way, they expect you to hire an attorney anyway. They expect you to fork over $500 an hour or whatever these egregious attorney's fees happens to be. But even if you don't hire an attorney, you're going to be paying all these court fees. Just to even file the case is going to probably cost you about $400. If you're appealing, you're going to have to get the clerk's record. That could be several $100s. You have to get them served. You have to hire a process server. Those fees will absolutely rack up real fast. And that's even if you don't hire an attorney. And they just feel so entitled to it. They just take your money. They know that the outcomes are predetermined. But you pay these fees in good faith because you know that the law is completely on your side. You know the facts are on your side. And you hope to actually recoup the money that you spent. You hope to get a return on your investment. You are legally entitled to a judgment in your favor. But if your opponent happens to be a state actor, well, the law doesn't apply to them. They're going to get off. And I used to think that the issue was just that they had immunity, right? They may have qualified immunity, judicial immunity, whatever immunity they have. I just came to the realization, based on a recent experience, that no, it's not the immunity. The immunity is just an easy way for them to sidestep addressing the issues in your case. But even when they don't have immunity, because there are limited circumstances when they don't have immunity, they still find a way to dismiss your case, to side in favor of the government actor. Even when the law is completely on your side, even when the facts are on your side, they still find a way. They will find one little wrinkle, one little, it's not even that you made a mistake. They look for any wiggle room to try to rule against you. You may have done everything right. By the way, have all these complicated rules, all these hurdles that you have to jump through. You do everything right. You file a brief, you research, you have all the case law, you have all your exhibits. Meanwhile, the opposing counsel is doing some really sloppy lawyering. His response is unbriefed. You can't just file a motion without a supporting brief. That motion may have only taken him 4 hours. Meanwhile, it took you 20 plus hours to file your brief. There's no case law cited, no thorough research. He's just going to come to court unprepared and wing it. And he has the liberty of doing that because he already knows that he's going to win. He doesn't have to do all the work that you're going to do. And they always say in all the case law that pro se litigants will be held to the same standard as attorneys, right? They're not going to cut you any slack because you're pro se. You're going to be held to the same standard. From my experience, it has been the complete opposite. They're not holding these attorneys to the same standard that they hold me. You're the licensed attorney. You're supposed to know everything. Yet you're making these glaring mistakes. You don't know the procedure. You didn't cite the case law correctly. I'm much more prepared than you. I'm actually running circles around you, and yet somehow you still win. And I know some of y'all think that I'm just bitter because you haven't actually experienced what the hell I'm talking about. They're not better lawyers. That's what I'm trying to say. They're not. If you were to read their pleadings, I'm not going to dox myself, but if you were to read their pleadings and compare them with mine, I'm running circles around them. And they're still winning some kind of way. Even when they're fucking wrong on the damn law. At the end of the day, they have institutional protection. You're pro se, you're nobody, they're part of the guild. And they all protect each other. They collect their retainers, they charge by the hour. They may be standing around drinking coffee and they're billing their clients. But this is what the judiciary respects. You're pro se. Where is your damn attorney? You may be right on the law, but you're still nobody. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to your attorney. I want you to have to pay $500 an hour because that is a vetting process to show that you are worthy to even speak to me. Now, I want to talk about law school because I'm not sure when this whole indoctrination actually happens. I never got indoctrinated. There's all these unwritten rules that I was not aware of. I'm sure they were there. I need somebody to spell this shit out for me. I just don't pick up on it because I am schizoid. I am an introvert. Unspoken rules just don't sink in. But the primary goal of law school is not to teach you the law. They don't give a shit about the law. They use this Socratic method. You just research you cite case law, you debate cases. You don't really get into statutory law very much. The law is whatever the courts say it is. and they focus more on procedure than substance. So whatever the law says, that doesn't matter. They indoctrinate you to respect the process, to respect the institution, and to not even focus on outcomes, but to focus on how you arrived at the conclusion. That's what gets you the most points on on a final exam. Not that the outcome is correct, but you got to go through their minutia. And even if the outcome is wrong, so what? You still explain it the way that lawyers would explain it. They're trying to teach you how to think like a lawyer, to basically be callous, to not care about clients, to not care about the lives being destroyed, to think about institutional doctrination. Right and wrong goes completely out the window. So here are the unwritten rules. The first rule is to respect the bench. You need to be submissive, respect judges, respect the institution of the judiciary. That is the first rule. It doesn't matter if they're wrong. You should respect the judge. I never picked up on this rule. I was probably disrespectful even then because some of those law professors were actually judges. Some of them actually wrote the restatement. And I still told them that they were wrong. And all the other lawsuits were like, oh, you're so damn disrespectful. I didn't give a shit. I read the case law. I don't give a shit that you wrote the restatement. You're still fucking wrong. The second unspoken rule is that the docket matters more than truth. It matters more than justice. Clearing these cases is far more important than getting to the truth. It's all about keeping the machinery going. They don't want any clogs. They don't want a case that's going to drag out. If they can get an early dismissal, absolutely they'll take it. It looks good for the judge. And as an attorney, you should think that way too. The third unspoken rule is that the state always gets a pass. If you're just a plain citizen, if you're pro se, or if you're just a nobody, you must follow every procedural rule, every hurdle. You must do everything right. You must dot your I's and cross your T's. But if you are a state official, you get to engage in sloppy lawyering and still get away with it. You still get the win. Even when you don't do shit right. These outcomes are predetermined. And then the fourth rule is self-preservation. Protect the institution. Protect the legal system. Protect fellow attorneys. I didn't know that this was an unspoken rule. Because at a certain level, they do think that I'm betraying them. Even though I'm not a part of their fucking guild. I may have the education, but I'm not a part of it. Why do I owe you some fucking loyalty? They think that I'm so disrespectful for calling them out on this shit. You have done nothing but make my life a living hell. You have done nothing but fuck me over. You think I'm supposed to be loyal to you? No. Now, I would like to be loyal to the American people. That's where my loyalty should go. But the American people are loyal to the fucking system that oppresses them. So, good luck with that. They are indoctrinated. They're not on your side. Yes, Fatima, we are fucked. We are completely fucked. So why don't they tell people these unspoken rules up front? I don't expect them to tell the public this, but can you at least like tell this to the law students? Can we at least discuss this amongst ourselves? Because some of us just don't pick up on it. The reason they're not going to tell you about these unspoken rules is because it would dismantle the entire system. The legal profession is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It depends on selling people false hope. You're not going to win, but you should at least have hope that you might win. You should put all of your faith and trust in the legal system. Spend tens of thousands of dollars on litigating your case, even though you're not going to win. The deck is stacked against you. It's almost like winning the lottery that you might actually win. And when I was debating, I know I shouldn't keep mentioning her, but this is the only attorney who I've actually debated on YouTube. So this is, well, that's not really true. That other attorney, but I'm not even going to mention him because she's not in the United States either, but she's in Canada. So it's a little bit more similar to our legal system. Because Canada is actually a commonwealth. So I would imagine that Canada basically functions the same way as the American legal system. She basically was denying the fact that you can't win if you're not a state official, that state officials almost always win. She's like, oh no, people win all the time. No, they don't. Are you out your mind? I guess she doesn't know that because of the unpublished opinions. Most of the times when they violate the law and dismiss your case, these opinions are unpublished. So they're not reported. Nobody even knows about them. So if people actually knew what was going on, nobody would submit to this legal system. Nobody would trust it. Nobody would think that the way to get their issues addressed would be to go to court. It's not. They're not going to help you. Especially if you're suing a state actor. There is no such thing as equal justice under the law. You may have rights on paper, but they're not legally enforceable. It's going to be dismissed on procedural grounds. They have immunity, and immunity is not the only procedural tool they have in their arsenal. I did address many of them in chapter 4 of my book, but there probably are others that I did not even name. And I just want to say this specifically because a lot of people think that, oh, it's just certain judges, right? It's the man, right? If y'all see my thumbnail, it's not the man. You think that if you get diversity, if you get representation, that the outcome is going to be different. It is not. They're all the fucking same. It doesn't matter their race, their gender, their socioeconomic background. The outcome is going to be the fucking same. There may be subtle nuances. I'll admit that. If y'all want me to be specific, I can be specific. The outcome is going to be the same. But I don't want people to get so... I don't want them to start clutching their pearls when you talk about race. I'm just going to say from my experience. The outcome is going to be the same no matter who the judge is. But in my experience, they do completely dehumanize you. If you get a black male judge, he still is going to fuck you over. He still is going to dismiss your case. But he probably will at least do it in a human manner. He's going to be humane. He's going to be respectful. Everybody else is just going to be completely callous and fuck you over and not think two shits about it. That includes everybody, including a black female judge. This is my courtroom. I can do whatever I want. I don't give a fuck about you. Again, the outcome is going to be the same, but it's all about how they do it. Now, they think they're doing you a favor because they're giving you an opportunity to be heard. And that's what I said in chapter 4 of my book. This whole ritual of due process, yes, they're going to hear you out. They're going to let you speak. They're going to let you file your motions, your briefs. They're going to let you do all this shit. They're going to waste all of your fucking time with all this preparation because you have this false hope that you can actually win. That if you actually work hard enough, this is supposed to be a meritocracy, right? That's what they say. If you're actually better than the opposing counsel, you might actually win. No, you're not. It doesn't matter how compelling your arguments are. At the end of the day, you still are nobody. You're not part of the club. You're not part of the guild. You're not a lawyer. And then there's a reason why they are going to side with the institution. It's not in their rational self-interest. First of all, to even become a judge, well, there's systemic vetting that goes on. At the federal level, these are political appointees, but even at the state level where they are elected, well, there's also the media vetting. They do screen these people to see that they are going to protect the institution. They prioritize judges who put institutional stability over activism. If y'all look at the Supreme Court hearings, they do spend a great deal talking about judicial activism. And so, even though they may be elected at the state level, they do have aspirations of eventually getting a federal appointment, of moving up the chain. And so they want a clean record of siding with the state, of siding with state institutions and state actors. Also, if they rule in your favor, even if they are following the law, they know that there's a good likelihood that their judgment will be reversed on appeal. So they're not willing to stick their neck out to help you. They want a clean record. They don't want their opinions or their judgments to be reversed. And then third, a judge who holds the system accountable is likely to face institutional ostracism. They're not going to be respected by their peers. When they go to these when they go to the bar association and they have their little, I've been to them, where they have their little luncheons and their dinners and they basically stroke each other's egos and talk about how, oh, you're so great. I love you. No, I love you more. This bullshit. Talk about how outstanding these judges are. Meanwhile, these judges don't actually do shit. That's what they live for. They live for going to the bar association, getting a round of applause, everybody stroking their egos, talking about how wonderful they are. I don't know, being a public speaker and just getting all this prestige. Like I said before, most attorneys and judges are cluster B. They're either narcissists or what's the other one? I'm sorry. I'm kind of, y'all, I'm not all the way together because I did have their surgery, but yeah, they're mostly cluster B. And so they do live for external validation. Oh, the word I was trying to think of earlier is histrionic. Yes, a lot of them are histrionic. They may not be full-blown narcissists, but they have shallow empathy. So let's talk about the psychology of these judges. How do they justify screwing people over? First of all, they do have a superiority complex. Not only do they think that they are better than even attorneys, but they damn sure think that they are better than you. Again, I know Judge Judy is not a real judge, but if you look at her show, she absolutely thinks she's better than the litigants. She has zero respect for them. I'm speaking, don't interrupt me, I'm more important than you, I make more money than you. She'll literally say that. And she used to be a real judge. But for whatever reason, they're on the side of the institutions. They have been given absolute authority over their courts. They have judicial immunity, which is absolute. You can't sue them for anything. Well, the technical caveat is that you can sue them for administrative, for anything that is administrative, but not judicial. But in practice, when you try to use that administrative exemption, well, they still, it doesn't matter. You if you follow the law, they still evade justice. They do dehumanize the litigants. They don't see you as a human being. They see you as a case number. You're basically somebody who's annoying them, who's taking up their time. They have more important things to do. They're thinking about what they're going to eat for lunch. They don't give a shit about the fact that your life is on the line. They are protecting the guild. They have tribal loyalty to other lawyers, to the institution, to the legal system itself. They have no loyalty to you because you're an outsider. You would think that the people, right? Democracy is based on consent of the governed. How are you an outsider of your own system when the source of the state's power is supposed to be the people? That's not how they see it. They have a hierarchical worldview, that it comes from the top down, not from the bottom up. And they are cowards. They want to punch down. They don't want to hold state actors accountable. They damn sure don't want to hold people accountable within their own county. Why? Because they need favors. They need to go to the commissioners to ask for an increase in their budget. They need to maintain their respect. They still engage with these people. They still would see them at the bar luncheons. They don't want to make enemies. They don't want to ruffle feathers. It's easier to fuck you over than to hold a government official accountable. So if the courts are not protecting your rights and they're not upholding the law, what is the structural purpose of courts? Because we do have this whole fairy tale that you go to court and you're going to get justice. Well, first you get a centralized dispute management system. It's not that you're going to get a morally correct outcome, but you do have a system of standardized state control where all grievances are routed through the courts. They don't want you taking the law into your own hands. This is their forum with predetermined outcomes. And they want you to believe that this is the only way to handle all of your grievances. Secondly, which is what I wrote in my book in chapter 4, one of their primary roles is to legitimize state violence. When they shoot somebody in the face like they did to Renee Good, well, the judiciary's role is to legitimize that violence, to basically give a sophisticated justification for why the state's violence was legitimate. And of course, most people are not as sophisticated as these judges, as these attorneys. So they will make all of these complicated excuses and justifications and qualifications for why the state's violence is legitimate. And most people just accept it. I'm not interested in your bullshit excuses. I'm not interested in your excuses. The bottom line is that somebody got shot in the face. I don't give a shit about your complicated legal explanations. That violence was illegitimate, and you're not going to convince me otherwise. And then third, well, it acts at the judiciary acts as a deterrence and social control. It basically makes examples out of people. It shows what happens when you go against the status quo. You think that you're going to go up against the system, that you're going to create some new president? No, they're going to fuck you over. They're going to create new case president from your case, and then your case will be used to oppress somebody else. I cannot believe that this case that I litigated probably 10 years ago, which was unpublished, by the way, which I can't even cite because it is unpublished. This other court cited that case to fuck somebody else over. So it didn't benefit me, but it benefits the institution. They have all these procedural tools that they can use to dismiss your case. They have Rule 12(6), which is a motion to dismiss, which basically means that even if everything you allege is true, the law provides no legal remedy. They have all these pleading requirements that they have to be sufficiently pled with enough detail. It can't be conclusory. By the way, the opposing counsel who represents the state, his arguments can be conclusory. He doesn't have to have evidentiary support. He can make mere conclusions and a court will just go along with it. But you can't do that. You have to have a record to support everything that you say. Judicial deference. Defer to the judges. The judges are always right. Standing, mootness, and summary judgment. I've talked about that in chapter 4 of my book. That most of the time when you sue a state actor, it's not going to be decided by a jury. It's going to be decided through summary judgment, which basically means it does not go before a jury. You're supposed to have an alienable right to a jury trial, but if it goes to summary judgment, then the judge decides and you get no jury trial. Summary judgment means that there is no genuine issue of dispute, so therefore the court can make a ruling on the law, but there always is a genuine issue of dispute. They never agree on the facts. Now, they have convinced us, because you watch these movies, right? Because I've watched these movies where somebody goes to the Supreme Court, you know, like the little black girl in Alabama, and then the Supreme Court basically desegregated the schools, and it's like, oh, the legal system actually works. This little black girl is not going to get spit on. That's not how the shit works. Those movies are so unrealistic. That's not how any of this shit works. You're litigating inside their system, right? You're on their turf. If you think they're going to use their institutions to dismantle their own institutions, that's not going to happen. Somebody was actually trying to convince me of this years ago, but because I was so indoctrinated, I didn't believe him. I was just like, no, but the law's on my side. They have to rule in my favor. It took me going through this shit so many times to finally realize that this person was right. And by the way, this person did not have any legal training. I don't know how he realized that. I guess as a libertarian, he just realized there is no way that courts can dismantle themselves. So they're going to rule against you. They're not going to rule in your favor. So when you have done this enough times, you do suffer moral injuries. You basically come to the realization that you don't have rights. In my case, I went to law school because I did take the law seriously. I thought the law was the great equalizer that when somebody gets fucked over, when they are the victim of injustice, you could actually bring them to justice. But no. You end up getting fucked over more because you spend so much time and money litigating these cases and they still fucking win. They completely dehumanize you. According to Hobbes and John Locke, the purpose of entering a social contract is for the protection of our natural rights. According to Hobbes, without the state, we would be in a war against all. We would basically have to fend for ourselves. So that's why we enter a social contract, so we don't have to fend for ourselves. So when a state stops protecting our rights and becomes the primary agent for violating our rights, then the social contract is void. That's when you turn to anarchy. People think that I came to anarchy lightly. I did not. I sort of was a classical liberal for a while, then I was libertarian. And then I just went for anarchy because I realized the whole social contract is illegitimate. You are not a sovereign citizen. You don't have any legal rights. You have privileges which can be revoked at the state's discretion. You are a subject of naked state violence, and those who inflict this naked state violence have total impunity. They can literally do whatever they want and get away with it. And I don't know how many times I can say this. You saw this shit with your own two eyes with Renee Good. Renee Good is not the only example. They do this shit to people on a routine basis. But for whatever reason, people just turn their eyes to it. They don't want to accept it. They have cognitive dissonance. Oh, this can't possibly happen. This can't possibly happen. This is America. This is a free society. This is a liberal democracy. This happens in Iraq. This happens in Qatar. This doesn't happen in America. Of course the fuck it does. Now, y'all know my philosophy is life abolitionism. So you know I gotta circle back to procreation. Because this authoritarianism does start with parenting. These parents teach their kids, do as I say. I'm always right. Not because I actually am right, but because of my position. I'm the parent, you're the child, you should just stay in your place. They don't teach children to stand up to injustice. They teach them to just accept it. Some of us were physically abused, but I think more of us were just abused psychologically. They are creating sitting ducks. You don't have any rights, and you also don't have any legal recourse. So when your rights get violated, you're basically forced to just accept it. Just like when you were a damn child. Your parents could slap the shit out you, and there was literally nothing you could do. You're still supposed to respect your parents. Just like the fucking state. When the state shoots you in the fucking face, you're still supposed to respect the fucking institution. None of us consented to this bullshit. It's not for our benefit. It's not for our protection. We wouldn't need protection if life wasn't imposed on us in the first place. There is no way to opt out. They have literally thought of everything. They have criminalized MAID. And then they want to gaslight you and talk about your mental health, how you need to call 988 after they have made your life a living hell. Now you're the problem, and the solution is for you to go talk to a fucking counselor. They're not going to hold themselves accountable and actually change the conditions that made you miserable in the first place. No, they think the solution is for you to talk. So that you learn to be compliant, you learn to submit, and you learn to accept your place in society as a fucking slave. Procreation is the root cause of it. That's what put you in a fucking matrix. There's just no other ways about it. I don't know how people think that procreation is an act of defiance. No, the fuck it's not. That's absolute bullshit. It is not defiance. It is an act of submission. You are rewarding the state by giving them more subjects. And what makes it worse is that parents are not the ones fighting the system. They're not resisting shit. They're literally throwing you to the fucking wolves, leaving you to fend for yourself. You have to figure out how to navigate the system because your parents are not going to teach you shit. So the household, well, according to Rousseau, the family is the original society. So the family is just a microcosm of the state. An authoritarian regime that mirrors state tyranny. Obedience is demanded simply because of the hierarchy. You don't have any rights. Respect your parents regardless of how unjust they are. Parents don't raise dissidents. They don't even teach you how to disobey authority. They teach you how to submit. How to be a fucking slave. At best, they try to teach you to be successful. How to make money. How to accept subjugation. And they teach you that the way to survive is through submission. When your rights are violated, the parents are not going to demand justice. What they're going to tell you is to stop causing trouble, keep your head down, move on. They're going to teach you how to sell out, how to climb the corporate ladder, and tell you to become a part of the system. I don't know how many times I've been told this, that the way to fight the system is to become a part of it, to fight it from within. That shit doesn't fucking work. So once they have conditioned you to accept an arbitrary hierarchy within a home, and the parents don't fight for, or they don't fight against injustice. They don't do shit. And then what they did is they delivered to the state a compliant member of the workforce to keep the system functioning. And of course they get rewards for this shit. They created a fucking slave for the state. They got their tax cuts. They got societal reinforcement. Right? They told them that being a parent is the most important role in society. And of course it is. The state can't exist without parents. They need you to enslave your children so that the state can continue to function. Now, I want to talk about modern activism. Oh, I hope I can get through this live stream without getting nauseous from. Anyway, I do feel myself getting nasal and congested, but I'm going to try to keep talking anyway. All of these so-called activists, they keep marching over their single issues. They want to be activism for veganism, for Black Lives Matter, for whatever bullshit cause they think is important on that specific day. And they think that their single issue is the only issue that matters. The problem with their logic is that if they don't address the legal system, then every other issue is completely irrelevant. The judiciary is the one branch of government in which we have direct contact with the state. This is the forum where you're supposed to express your grievances. Yes, they want to be cowards. Of course, they want to punch down. They want to hold people accountable because it's low-hanging fruit. They can talk to their neighbor. They can talk to the person who is in proximity to them and say, oh, we don't like your consumption. They're not going to fight against the system, though. They're not going to actually fight up or punch up. They're not going to fight against government institutions. No, they're going to be a coward. They're going to try to shame you for your fucking consumption because that's easy, that's lazy, it requires no fucking courage. And then when you give them what they want, even if you do capitulate and do whatever they want you to do, are they going to circle back and fight for your liberation? No, because they're still fucking cowards through and through. They don't give a fuck about your liberation. So they will take the easy victory. If they can convince one person to do what they want, then that's an easy win. They know they can't dismantle the entire system or do anything to hold these government officials accountable, or even corporate actors, they can hold them accountable. So they want to go with the low-hanging fruit. They want to go against the poor person who's just trying to survive. and try to shame them, guilt trip them, and I guess they feel better when they do this. This strokes their egos to think that they're actually doing something when they're not. They're not doing shit. Because even if you do change your consumption, you're still going to be a fucking slave. And they're not doing anything to dismantle that. Now, there's many people who say that they want you to be successful. And what I... Which chapter was that? I believe that was chapter 8 of my book. They want you to be successful so they can benefit from it. They want to live vicariously through you. They want you to have money so that you can take them out to nice restaurants, so that you can buy them shit. But at the same time, they will criticize you for selling out. So this is where the cognitive dissonance comes, because in order to be successful, it does necessarily require you to sell out. I don't know anybody who is a multi-millionaire who has it completely sold out. All of the lawyers have sold out. All of the judges have sold out. All of the successful businessmen and women, the capitalists, the government bureaucrats, they have all fucking sold out. So when you tell somebody to be successful, you're literally telling them to sell their fucking soul and to oppress you, because in order for them to be successful, they have to go around oppressing other people to extract. The way that they become wealthy is by taking wealth from other people. And I know people have Stockholm Syndrome. You don't side with the poor people at the bottom. You side with the wealthy because you aspire to be like them. You want to be the next fucking oppressor who becomes wealthy at other people's expense. And in the meantime, you're the one who's getting fucking oppressed. So you probably should be siding with the people at the bottom who are being oppressed alongside you. So when the government abandons its role as the protector of natural rights, then it basically transformed into a for-profit, pay-to-play corporation. The courtroom stops being an arena of truth and becomes a transactional marketplace. You have these overpriced mercenaries. By mercenaries, I'm referring to attorneys. You have these filing fees, retainer costs. And if you can afford to pay to play, maybe you'll have a chance. These statutes, these regulations are not created to protect the public from harm. They are written by lobbyists and these elite guilds to act as barriers to entries to fuck you over. Meanwhile, you're supporting it, even though it goes against your rational self-interest. Because if there were not these barriers to entries, you would actually have greater access to the services you need to maintain your own life, including greater access to legal services. Without their fucking monopoly, you would not have to pay $500 an hour. You would not have to pay so much for medical services. I'm eventually going to circle back to the medical industry because I have so much to say about them too. You are no longer a sovereign citizen with inherent rights, which are supposed to be enforced by the state. You are a consumer, a tax base, a source of court fees, Now, I want to talk about what this citizen actually gets from the state. Because you're not getting any protection for your rights. You're not getting that at all, which is supposed to be the core function of the state. So if the legal system offers no genuine protection of rights, what does the public actually get? Well, if you listen to that debate that I had with AVG, she was talking a great deal about infrastructure. And she is absolutely correct. You get an infrastructure, you get an arena for extraction. You get predictable administrative rules for everyday commerce and currency. You get a currency which allows the facilitation of trade. But it is a system that is completely devoid of moral justice. And its infrastructure only serves as a board where citizens and corporations extract wealth from one another. I'm eventually going to get to the whole purpose of currency under this bullshit system. I hope I don't forget, but okay, yeah. It's in my outline. And of course, the state wants its cut. So it is pay to play. In order for you to obtain wealth, you need to give the state its cut. So it's not a gift. You don't get anything for free. You pay for everything that you get. You pay for the power grids, the water systems, the roads. This keeps the economy moving. This ensures that the population is productive. The state extracts wealth from the public's productivity because the state is not productive at all. The state is a fucking parasite. They extract from your productivity in the form of taxes, court fees, and administrative costs. You get pacification through material utility. The state gives the public just enough economic opportunity to keep them distracted, working, and compliant. Basically, what I talked about before about the bare life, it gives you enough to maintain a bare life just for you to survive. Not to be happy, not for you to get justice, but just to be alive. And that's what the whole pro-life movement is. You get to be alive, you get to be miserable, you get to be oppressed, but as long as you're alive, that's all that matters. So this infrastructure is not a gift. It has nothing to do with the social contract, because that was not the purpose of the social contract. The social contract was to protect your rights, not to give you roads and running water and power grids. It was not to keep the economy running. Of course, those are bonuses, but the core function of the state is to protect your fucking natural rights. And they have dropped the ball completely. So the public trades away their fundamental rights in exchange for basic material utility, and I will call it an open air prison. You get to be enslaved in an open air prison with no rights. And I guess you should be grateful for it. You should be grateful to live in the freest country on the fucking planet. Now let's talk about money, or to be more accurate, let's call it currency. This fiat currency that we have. Because a lot of people are perplexed as to why the wealthy need so much money. They have more money than they can possibly spend. They don't really need it for their own survival. And so I know a lot of people say you should just tax the wealthy. First of all, I've talked about this before. That currency is not real wealth. It is actually debt. Yes, it can be used to purchase goods and services, but it does come at a cost, and we're not the ones who pay that cost. Because of the exchange rates, it's really the third world that actually has to pay for it because they're supplying their actual raw materials and goods. So that money is not actual wealth. If you were to actually spend all that money that these wealthy people are hoarding, you would actually destabilize the entire economy. That is money that is not supposed to be spent. It can't possibly be spent because there is no wealth backing it. There is no gold. There is nothing backing it. So for the geniuses who think that you can just tax the wealthy and that would fix the problem, as if money is real wealth, it is not. That money serves the primary purpose as being a scorekeeping card to show who's winning and who's losing. There is a competition. And if you have money, then that basically means that you're winning. So they can never get enough because because somebody else is making more money, they have to make more money. So Bill Gates and Elon Musk and whoever else, the Mark Zuckerbergs, they can never have enough money because they want more. They want to be at the top. This is the metric for status, for dominance, and for stroking their own egos. This is how they determine who is at the top of the social hierarchy. Under statism, in which we have no rights that are legally enforceable, capital becomes the only effective shield. The more money you have, the more you're able to pay into these guilds, the more institutional influence you have, the more structural installation you have to buy yourself protection from the system. They literally get to write their own laws. They get to dictate the terms of their interactions with the state. Now, the people at the bottom could do this too, but they're just not sophisticated enough. They're too apathetic. They're looking for easy fixes. They don't want to hold out. They don't want the government shut down. They can't go a month without their SNAP benefits, so they can't hold out. They capitulate. That basically they don't have the stomach for bucking up to the system. And they're even more vulnerable when they have some damn kids. The more kids they have, the more fucking vulnerable they are. The weaker they are, the more vulnerable they are to state oppression. So money does not liberate you from the state. It just buys you, it buys you some immunity, but you're still subjected to state laws or state. You basically operate within the same matrix as everybody else. It does buy you insulation. It allows you to hire these elite legal mercenaries who know how to play the games, who know how to bend the rules in their favor. It does give you rule maker status where you get to write your own laws. It does allow you to outsource the damage of your own bad policies. Because you're basically too big to fail. Once you reach a certain status, you don't have to suffer the consequences for anything. You can just force the public to pay for it. So even when you do fuck up, well, the public is going to pay for it either in higher consumption prices or the state is going to bail you out. So even if you do crash, even if you do fuck up your own corporation, you are too big to fail. You're going to get a fucking golden parachute. This still is not real liberation. You're still bound to the state. Even the ultra wealthy are dependent on the state's infrastructure. They're dependent on the state's currency. They are dependent on the state's enforcement of their property rights. Which, as y'all know, as I said many times, property is theft. They're illegitimate. They do suffer from anxiety of losing their wealth because they already know how fucked up they are. They know if they ever actually did fall down to the bottom and actually have to live among the real people, well, they just might be the victims of the shit that they did to other people. So they can't fall. They just can't. For their own survival, they have to remain at the top. They have to live within their lawless, extractive system. They don't want to go down to the meat grinder with everybody else. And when some of these people do actually lose their wealth, well, y'all see they can't actually cut it. They talk so much about how they work so hard and how, well, everybody else could just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, when they actually do lose their wealth, a lot of them will delete themselves because they can't fucking hack it. Moral degradation is the price of entry. If you want to be a part of the club, you're going to have to sell your soul. You're going to have to completely sell out. You're going to have to assimilate. You're going to adopt their moral bankruptcy. You're going to have to adopt the instincts of your oppressor. And so many people are too enthusiastic to do it. If you wave enough money in their faces, they will absolutely sell out with no hesitation. I'm just not that type of person. That's just not the way that I'm. I just don't. I want to make money the fair way. I don't want to become successful by selling my fucking soul. I just don't give a shit enough. I don't care about life that much that I have to sell my soul. I'm not even going to say what I want to say because I am on YouTube. Let's just say I would probably choose the route of Socrates than a fucking sell out. Let's just put it that. So those of you who are not philosophically inclined, you may not know what I mean. How did Socrates go out? Well, you can look it up. So the American people are asleep at the wheel. They don't give a fuck. They're ignorant. They're apathetic. They do turn a blind eye to injustice even when it is put in their face. And even when it is put in their face, well, it's force-fed to them what the media spin. The media will spin it. They can't look at objective facts and just see things for what they actually are. The media will show them Renee Good getting shot in her face. And then the media will say, oh, she was trying to run him over. You can watch the damn video and see that she was not actually trying to run him over. She was trying to flee. and you will believe the media spin over your own lying eyes. That's how retarded these people fucking are. That's how fucking incompetent they are. That's how unworthy they are of democracy. Now, as you all know, I am an anarchist. Let me make sure that everybody can still... I gotta check back to make sure. Okay. As you know, I am an anarchist. So my philosophy, life abolitionism, the goal is to dismantle the state through demographic collapse, stop procreating. But short of that, there are things that can be done, which I don't think the public has the stomach for because they're so weak and apathetic and fucking pathetic. They're not going to fucking do it. First of all, you need to have, I would say statutory, but it'd probably be better to have constitutional amendments, both at the state level and at the federal level. I don't know what I just said. Sometimes I talk so fast I don't know what I actually said. You need to have amendments at the state level and at the federal level. Eliminating qualified immunity, judicial immunity, government immunity. It's already in the fucking Constitution, by the way. Which amendment was that? The 11th Amendment doesn't actually create state immunity. What it says is that citizens of foreign state can't sue their own state. It says nothing about you suing your own state. Most of these immunity doctrines were created by the courts. They're nowhere in the damn Constitution. But the way courts interpret their own opinions is that judicial interpretation of the Constitution is basically the same as the Constitution itself. So the only way to override judicial opinions is through a constitutional amendment. By the way, I've already made these proposals. I actually had a proposal that I mailed to Jasmine Crockett. Y'all, I'm sorry to be telling on people, but of course I didn't get a fucking response. I thought you were about that life. I thought you were this activist who was really this civil rights attorney. Why didn't I get a fucking response? Maybe I'll have better success with James Tallarico if he's put in office, because James Tallarico seems to be willing to do the fucking work. There needs to be a statutory moratorium on procedural dismissals. Courts need to actually decide cases on the merits. There should be an unassailable and inalienable right to a jury trial. They should not be able to deprive you of a jury trial through summary judgment. That shit needs to be completely eliminated. Moreover, the jury needs to be educated. They need to learn about jury nullification. That under common law, the jury was the trier of not just the fact, but the jury was the trier of the law and the fact. You don't get to have these secret discussions between the judges and the attorneys, and the jury does not get to hear all the information, and they're supposed to decide cases based on limited information. Y'all know how they always approach the bench and they're whispering and shit? Some of the things they're talking about is pertinent information that the jury actually needs to hear. But they have all these fucking rules that prevent the jury from hearing all the damn facts. We need to break up the guild of the Bar Association. We need to break that up, have a free market. We need to recognize that under the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, It's the Fifth and the Sixth Amendment, because you do have a right to an attorney in criminal cases, but under due process, you have a right to an attorney in civil cases. But under common law, the right to counsel did not mean the right to an attorney. There were no law licenses under common law, so the right to counsel cannot possibly mean the right to a licensed attorney. There should be an unfettered right to counsel of choice. You should be free to choose whoever you want to represent you in a court of law. You should be There was another term under common law called what is it called? Representation by next. I'm sorry, I haven't looked at this in a while. I used to research this shit all the time, but I believe it's the next friend or something. But basically, somebody who you trust, who is your actual friend, not a random stranger and that you select out of the phone book. That was the standard under common law, not this bullshit that we have now. The courtroom is a trap. The goal is to get you in their matrix where they have predetermined outcomes. Yes, they're going to fuck you over. And after they're done fucking you over, they're going to use the president from your case to fuck somebody else over. You can't win. Even going in there for them is a complete waste of time. And I know, shout out to all the First Amendment auditors. I didn't even know that these people existed until a few months ago. Because I was on these panels, there's a lot of First Amendment auditors out there. They need to be exposed. We need to expose the transcript discrepancy, because they do absolutely manipulate transcripts. You will be in court. You know what was actually said. And then when you get the fucking transcript, after you paid all of these hundreds of dollars to get it transcribed, the transcript does not match what was actually said. And of course, you're not allowed to have cameras inside the courtroom. That's another shit that needs to be fucking dismantled. If this is supposed to be a public forum, why are we not allowed to record what happened inside the damn courtroom? I've already mentioned jury nullification. Jury nullification basically means that if the jury disagrees with the law, they can nullify it. Don't convict, even if the facts say that they did the crime. You should still acquit them, because you don't agree with the actual law. There was no victim. Nobody was actually harmed. And you don't support state violence. So if you ever get put on a fucking jury and there is no actual victim, it's just the state trying to engage in lawfare, you should absolutely acquit. There should be direct economic and social pressure. First of all, stop voting for these people. Stop doing a straight party ticket when you don't even know who these politicians are or where they stand on the issues. If you're, I don't want to be insulting, but if you don't have time to actually do your homework, you would be better off not voting at all. Because voting is an act of violence. You are putting state violence in the hands of a political actor. And if you haven't done your due diligence, then you have no position. You have no right to fucking vote. Because it does not only affect you, it affects other people too. So if you're too lazy or you have too many kids that you just don't have time because you're too busy cooking dinner, you probably should just sit your ass at home and not vote. I don't know why people act like voting is so noble. It is ignoble. When you have not done your homework, voting is the worst thing you can possibly do. All you're doing is inflicting violence on your fellow citizen. I would say stay out there forums in the first place. If you do have a contract, you probably should put an ironclad arbitration clause in there that keeps it out of the courts because these judges can't be trusted. They're treasonous, they're seditionists. If you make me dictator for the day, I would probably round up all these judges and put them in FEMA camps. I probably would actually teach them the fucking Constitution and actually teach them their roles as judges and only reintegrate them back into society when they have shown contrition. Then I would probably look up their records and show how many people they have actually fucked over. And they would actually have to give redress for every single person who has been fucked over by them. Don't make me the fucking dictator. Because y'all, by the end of it, you'll get a real fucking democracy. I would almost say that we should have the direct democracy, but at the same time, I don't really believe that tyranny of the majority is much better. It's really not, because you can just have manufactured consent. I would say democracy only works when you choose to exist with a society. So if you can choose to opt in, right? You can choose a tribe, a little city, a little town. That's fine. But when it becomes so massive that it doesn't even represent the interests of anybody because there's too many people, then I think direct democracy is just pure tyranny. So democracy really, direct democracy only works at a very local level. It does not work at a centralized level because it really does not represent anybody's interest. Now, we have all these people who want to protest Donald Trump on No King's Day. They think that Trump is the only king in America. He is not. We have a whole bunch of philosopher kings on the bench who are also kings, who also make our lives a living hell, probably even more so than Donald Trump. And yet, No King's Day says nothing about these philosopher kings. So at the end of the day, these activists are a fucking joke. I don't take them seriously. I used to actually support them. I used to go to these protests. The last protest I went to was for Palestine. Jill Stein was there. I haven't been to one since. Let me see if I can go through some of these comments. I don't know if I'll read. Every time I bring people up when I use Restream, I have all these issues. All of these technical glitches. Yes, they are absolutely horrible people. And I am eventually going to talk about Justice Brandeis and how he played a critical role and fucking up the entire legal system. There is no justice in America. Absolutely right. Sounds nice. Yeah, I love David Hume, actually. Very interesting. I think he doesn't get enough credit. Exactly. All these people keep talking about reforming the state. No, it does not need to be reformed. It needs to be dismantled, burned down to the ground, and we need to start over from scratch. We need a new social contract. This constitution that we have needs to be completely voided. And then we need a new social contract that actually represents the interests of the current generation. Okay, set scales. If you want me to post a link, I can, but I really need you to clarify what you mean by this. Where is the fucking hope? Where is the hope? Because the legal system is fucked, the economy is fucked, we have no fucking rights, and yet all these people keep breeding more fucking children into this fucking system to be fucking sitting ducks. There is no hope. I'm trying to create hope with my nonprofit so that people won't be trapped anymore. That is the only hope. The only hope is to decriminalize medical assistance in dying. I'm going to post this damn link and hopefully I won't have any glitches. Because I really would like to know what you're talking about. I mean, have you heard a word that's been said because these judges are just completely fucking people over? Where's the fucking hope? Tell me specifically, what am I supposed to have hope about? Now, I'm not even sure where okay, let's just keep going. Rousseau thought humans were naturally good, but we are so deep into civilization that sickness we are just in China. Right. Well, he believes that civilization actually corrupts people. That he believed in the whole noble savage, that before civilization, humans were naturally good, and so civilization is the root cause of the corruption. No, it's not. You have no proof for that. I'm not sure why you think that after tens of thousands of years of civilization getting it wrong, that at some point it's going to get right. It's not going to happen, and it sure as hell is not going to happen during our lifetime. The only thing you can do is stop procreating, stop rewarding the fucking state. If there are no subjects, then the state eventually gets dismantled. That's all you can do. Yes, I have been to court. I was just in court yesterday. That's why I'm doing this live stream. I can talk about that. You know what? I'm probably not. I'm probably not going to do that. Um, I don't know if this is a criminal case or a civil case. I'm assuming you're talking about a criminal case. This probably was a traffic case, but I'm not going to address that right now because most of those summons are completely illegitimate. That's another thing. After they completely fuck you over, they want you to sit on their bullshit juries. They want to use you to what? To legitimize the state after they completely fuck you over? No, if you put me on your fucking jury, I'm going to engage in jury nullification. I'm going to acquit. Um, it has nothing to do with being. That's another thing that people think. People think that if you are in court, that you did something wrong. No, I did nothing wrong. The state did something wrong, and they get off on it. They're never held accountable. They may have fucked you over, and you may have already suffered injustice. You just don't know it because you don't. I mean, if you don't know the law, then you don't like that summons, whatever it happens to be. That summons may actually be. You said you were summoned 4 or 5 times. I guarantee they violated the law. I guarantee they did something wrong, and they probably could be held liable for it. But if you were to sue them, they would get off. So you have already admitted that the state has fucked you over. You just it's just that people don't know the law well enough to actually recognize when they're getting fucked over. No morals whatsoever. You are spot on with that. Hello.
Hello, what's up?
Not much.
Yeah, so I kind of was not listening that much. I was doing a bunch of stuff, but all the things that you mentioned there at the end, the economy, rights, there's something else. All those things are literally products of the state, which are the problem. Why would we want those things anyway? How would those even give me hope?
Because it's not that I want those things, it's because I was born into it whether I wanted to or not. So they exist whether I actually support them or not.
I was having a discussion with Fatima yesterday about rights, and we determined that the entire reason that these people, like these philosophers or these uh, founders of nations, like the founding fathers of the US, the whole reason they even talk about natural rights and contemplate them is because they're remembering something that was lost, something that civilization took away from people. And once that was taken away, there's this internal intuitive feeling that something is missing. And so then people start contemplating rights and morality and all this stuff because they're trying to figure out what was lost. So all the things that you mentioned are literally the things that caused us to lament in the first place.
Okay, but there's no opting out though. You exist within their system. You have to use their currency. You have to obey their laws. There is no way around it. Do you have your own currency?
Well, when it comes to the modern currency, as we discuss with modern money mechanics, all it's based on is trust. So their currency is fragile anyway.
Yeah, hello, what's up, everyone? Yeah, just a barge in here. Yeah, currency is pretty arbitrary and fake. If you, especially the one that America uses, it is fake, you know. And yeah, and like Adam, like I think you already know our stance is me and LA that like I don't think humans have the capacity to be like reformers of even themselves. Like I agree in the sense that like we should value self responsibility, but like I don't think the majority of humans have the capacity to be that because they actively choose their enslavement, right, LA? Most humans choose their enslavement over like freedom, anyways, you know.
Right. By the way, hi Witchy.
Hey, we
Yes,
should.
they want to be slaves, so they don't even want to be liberated. Like they would actively attack you for trying to liberate them.
Yeah, exactly, right? You have like, hey, you know, you can be freer and have like freer like life and like no currency, and they like they'll call you like I idealistic, unrealistic, naive, and shit like that. When like what you're saying is trying to help them. Hey, your life is kind of a slave, right? You know, like you like your enslavement, and they don't like that. You know.
So, set scales, what hope are we supposed to have? That's what I would like to know.
Yeah, I'm curious.
We put hope in the fact that humans have lived in alignment with nature, and we try to restore this balance, the balance of modern knowledge with ancient wisdom, rooted in alignment with natural law.
What are they
Yeah,
It,
doing right now, though? This is not. I mean, I'm taling about right now.
yeah, like, and if I can
you
just add,
know,
oh, sorry.
well, there is hope in the sense that it is so out of whack and out of alignment with natural law, and will continue to grow more so out of alignment with natural law, that the people will realize that it was all ridiculous to begin with.
Hmm. I
So
think that's
this is just
taking
based
too
on
much.
mysticism. You just believe that it's going to happen, but you don't have any reason to believe it other than this is just what you want to happen.
And besides that, like I think it's putting too much trust in like the lion's share of the global population because sure we might have lived like this thousands of years ago or like whatever view of time anyone has. Like even Rousseau said something like this. Rousseau lived before evolution. Before Darwinism. So he said that like yeah, even back when humans are like fundamentally good, the majority of them chose their enslavement and they made the property rights. And here we are now. We are, in the words of LA, infected by the general will of others and civilization, right? We've been so corroded, corrupted, whatever, infected that like we're pretty much at like a breaking point of like breaking ourselves down. And like we don't have any knowledge of things because I think last time I read something, a city population is having more like of an intolerance towards like plant-based diets and plants. So yeah, there you go. Like even in like a smaller scale, humans are evolving to not even go back to that. And yeah, like there's like microplastics in our blood and in the grass too. So like it's gonna take heavy. I don't know. Seems out of the ether for me to go back to the bucolic state.
I think people need to stop having false hope. I think people just need to accept what is, and
Yeah.
if they accept the way things are and acted accordingly, they probably would not procreate. They probably would not support the state. But because they
Then
do have this wishful thinking that things are going to get better, they keep making bad choices.
But the thing is, though, is that in order for the um, authorities to stay in power is through constant struggle every day, every single second, really, that they exist. They're constantly waging war on the public.
Well,
yes,
And
in
they
order for them
so,
to stay in power, they need more subjects, which means they need more people to procreate.
exactly. It's not just struggle. It's also like the submissive
well,
man, human capital.
this actually goes back to what you were talking about, Fatima, with Rousseau when he's talking about the uh, well, I'm just going to call it the shift between agrarian societies, or I'm sorry, hunter gatherers and agrarians, because the agrarian societies basically, the reason that we have it the way it is now and why civilization took over was because they were basically able to grow huge armies of people
Yeah.
that the non agrarian societies could not deal with. And so they basically terraformed the earth through agriculture and war.
Yeah, that's true. But like I think what's also left out of there is that like the humans who choose to go with the agriculturalists, they chose it because they wanted their lives to be easier and more efficient. So like and like if they obviously have that taken away from them, they're going to notice something's missing, even though weirdly enough that's not what we needed. Agriculture, it's so ingrained in us that like you can't really conceive of like a human settlement or a society without agricultural now. And like to me agriculture is like the first foundations of our enslavement according to Rousseau and like a lot of like neo Luddites and stuff like that. So
Okay, what I would like hope for is to not be a sitting duck. What I would like to have hope for is that my rights are not going to be violated by the state, and that the state actor is going to get away with it. So, can you tell me how I'm supposed to have hope that I actually have rights, and that the state is not going to fuck me over and just get off, and that the judges are actually going to follow the law? Like, that's what I need hope for.
Well, the expectation that the government will follow their own standard is only going to lead to disappointment because the government are they're inherent liars, and they have accepted violence as the only legitimate way for them to exist on the earth.
So,
So,
where's the hope? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
and the hope is in putting faith in people. That's not in the government.
No, I do not have faith in the people.
no,
It
because
emanates from the
like
people. It goes from the bottom up. The people are the problem. The reason
yeah,
the
they
government, the reason the government is so fucked up is because the people are fucked up. This is their system, and this is exactly how they want it
yeah,
to be.
Well,
it's not.
take
Hmm?
let's take what I was talking about earlier, right, with the agrarian societies. The reason that they accepted agrarianism, not just because their ancestors made the shift over, but because they had loads and loads of children who outnumbered their ancestors many to one, who didn't know any other way.
Hmm.
So if the people could learn a different way, which ideally would have to be at as young an age as possible, there would be hope there that the people would change.
I don't understand what you're saying. We have a public education system which indoctrinates children from a very young age. The state
Yeah, it
literally
does.
controls everything. The media controls everything. So where are these people supposed to get this alternative worldview? They're not seeking it out themselves. When you try to give it to them, they're not interested. So how are these people supposed to have this epiphany that all of a sudden they care about freedom?
Yeah, because like many people who claim to care about freedom actually don't really follow through, and that is especially true with a lot of like quote unquote small government activists here in America. Like they end up just like quelling, or like they end up just like going back towards like authoritarianism. Like they support ICE, they support what happened to Renee Good and Alex Pretty. So
Like, are you aware that when Renee Good got shot in her face, the public actually supported. They said it was her fault. They said she was disrespectful and she deserved it. So you
yeah,
think that the buck doesn't stop with the public?
Oh, I mean, not the entire public.
It doesn't
Maybe.
matter. It's enough of them. It's majoritarian. The
it's
majority
majority. Yeah, it is.
agrees with whatever the state does.
Yeah, and it's also pretty symbolic that people supported ICE, because if you voted 2024, you obviously wanted that. So like it's not just like government comes from somewhere. It's not like some abstract Leviathan beast. What makes it even more frightening is that it comes from ordinary people, because we allow it to live, and like for some reason we allow this system to live even though we hate it. Like it's like I learned like helplessness, and I don't see humans like waking up to like their like delusions, because like they enjoy it while also like hating it. Like people hate that they have to work, but they also like the newest album or music that's going to come out, or like the new show that's going to come out entrapped within the same system that
We live in a
enslaved.
democracy, so I don't understand how you can't blame anyone except the American people.
Exactly, you can. The American people just like allow this, and not only that, like it's an ancient thing. Humans allow themselves to be taken over by each other, and thus they kind of gave up everything. It's like with Rousseau, man is born free, but everywhere he goes, he's in chains, and that's true. And like he wasn't just saying that as like a one-off statement. That's like a core of his political philosophy of like, hey, we're kind of fucked, because like we're just because like the people before us and even now around us, they kind of like this enslavement, and like they don't want to break free, which is why he had to like mitigate his philosophy with like the general will. I direct democracy, even though he was also critical of like mass democracy. He wanted a smaller, direct democracy. He favorites city states as like the main mode of occupation. So yeah.
There is hope in one thing. For example, many people who voted for Trump, not all of them, but I don't think they all are claiming that they voted for Trump anymore. So
Yeah, but like
allows them,
what?
well, this
But
allows them at least to distance themselves and acknowledge some sort of mistake, even if they might not go all the way with acknowledging the mistake. And furthermore, one big reason people do not speak out against state in this country is because it has convinced people that if they do, that they're going to do it alone. But, it's only one person versus the whole state. And this is a
That's
lot.
true though. You are
that's
doing it
true.
alone.
That's
Nobody's going
kind
to
of the
fucking
whole
help you
ordeal.
when you get fucked over. They're not going to help you.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
but if
exactly,
we
and
could
like
remove that individualism, that would help.
yeah, but like
It
and
is every man for himself. They don't care.
yeah, they don't. And like to people who do regret voting for Trump, regret is one thing, but it's not a complete like absolvement of their issues because, as I said, they still go to work and they still sustain this, society that they hate and they regret to be in and they regret to vote in. Which I don't think it makes sense to say they voted in because, like, either with Kamala or Trump, you would still have these problems. You would have these problems either way. So, like, it's more of like an admission that, like, yes, I don't like how America is, but I'm not gonna do anything about it because, like, I like certain superficial conveniences that just make my dopamine happy. That's what it seems to me more so.
The state has convinced people to outsource violence to it, so that way they don't have to deal with violence.
Okay,
But
let me
in
ask you a
doing
question.
so,
Do you hold government officials accountable for their policies?
Yeah, like
Set scales. Do you hold the government accountable? Like? Do you blame them for their own policies?
well, the government, they seem to do they think is going to empower them the most. So, I mean, it's a tough. I mean, they are to blame for their own policies, but as you guys say, and I do acknowledge, the people do empower them and typically
yeah.
support their policies.
Mm-hmm. General will. Yep.
So, I mean, they're definitely to blame, but I'm not sure they're more to blame than the people.
I think the people, in my opinion, are more to blame than the government officials because government officials are not just like they don't like come from nowhere. They come from us, the general public. They were once ordinary people who just so happen to have a bit more wealth than us, or just more human relations and like connections, and they just smuggle their way into the top leverage and boom and like the American what's fucking interesting is that people know it's unfair and yet they allow it to happen. Like in ancient China, right? If an emperor was doing so horribly, they would lose the mandate of heaven, and you know what would happen? They would rebel and start a civil war every like generation or so. Like, why do you think they all joke about China being broken apart and then whole again, broken apart and whole again, as if it's like a never-ending vase being dropped and then repaired with glue again. That's essentially how it should be in America, but it's not even doing that. It's just one like singular time of like obedience, slavery, and like cowardice, and just being kind of stupid and meek and worthless. I hate to say it, but it is how it
Yeah,
is. And
I
like,
have so much contempt for these cowards, and what makes it so bad is that because they don't do anything, they want to be free riders. It leaves it on everybody else. So the tiny percent of people who actually are fighting the system, we have to do it alone, and we have to actually pull everybody else's weight because everybody else is just they're asleep at the wheel. They're not paying attention. They don't know what the fuck is going on. And meanwhile, they're actually condemning you for fighting the system, which they should be doing themselves. They're the ones with the children, right? They put their children in this fucking system, so they have an interest in fighting to protect their children, but they don't do it. They leave their children to fend for themselves, and I think it's absolutely pathetic.
yeah, and like they put their own lives in danger, the children lives in danger, because like their children are already slaves from day zero, you know. Like, you know, it's just not fair. It's a very unfair advantage, you know, of like people knowing that they're slaves and yet they don't do anything about it. It's almost like that film, The Thing by John Carpenter. It's like they know they aren't the real person and yet they still act as if they are the real person, even though they have been assimilated and infected by the alien parasite. You know.
Okay, Seth, because I want to ask you a question. You said that there are some people who shouldn't procreate, but I guess other people should procreate. What I want to ask you, not about who should or shouldn't procreate, who deserves to be a slave in this system? That's what I would like to know. Who deserves it? Like what type of people deserve to be a slave in this system against their will?
Well, according to natural law, the people who would deserve to be slaves would be the people who empower the system most.
But they were born into it, so did they actually deserve it, or did they just try to make the best out of it after they were already here?
Well, I would definitely say not to try and make the best out of it while you're already here. That typically comes at the expense of other people.
So the correct answer would be that nobody deserves it because nobody consented to it, which means
Well, no one does. Well, I don't know that because obviously we're here.
I don't consent to it. So how do I deserve this shit? How do because you said that some people have a right to procreate or they deserve whatever. So because my parents want to procreate, how does that mean that I deserve to be enslaved to the state?
Well, look, we can take this to the all the way extreme example that I will hear atheists say, you know, why does God allow the killing of babies? Why do babies die? And the reason that there's all this violence and needless suffering is because, quite frankly, the collective empowers it.
Okay, but the collective did not create me. My parents created me.
Yeah, and
Well,
and your parents belong to the collective as well, and you know it's kind of like an endless, infinite regress of like, you know, ownership and ownership.
You can take agency for your body and how you interact in the world based off of the circumstances you find yourself.
No, I don't even own my life. I don't even own my body. The state owns that too.
Yeah,
I can't
like,
do what I want to do because what I want to do is against the law.
They do not own your body because
yes, they do. They do.
Own your body.
They could no, they kind of do because like if I say I want to like, you know, commit
don't say it. Don't say it.
I won't say it. But I was gonna use another word that's like a slang word. Let's just say society. If I wanted to like do that, right, I would be in jail. It's actually illegal for me to do that. Someone is actually legally obligated to stop me from doing that if they don't want me.
Well, I'll tell you what, anything that involves the violation of another being probably should be illegal. But the problem is they have all these things that do not involve that and actively empower those things that are not illegal or are legal.
So they're not going to do anything to protect our rights, to improve our quality of life.
Yeah.
and yet they're going to force you to stay within the system against your will. So you're a complete sitting duck.
Yeah, because like what power do you have? Like what like vitality do you have to like enforce that, hey, I'm free. Stop doing this to me without them just like laughing
Well,
at your face. You know, they don't even
well,
see us as a
we
threat.
we can examine the government and ask ourselves, what does the government actually produce? And the answer is nothing. They don't actually produce anything of tangible value. All they do is force people to behave a certain way through violence. And
Yeah,
That's the
well,
point. That's the point. The
so,
state can't produce. The state cannot even produce human beings. It requires the public to do that, to breed slaves into the system so that the
yeah,
state, as a demiurge, can actually enslave them.
exactly. And like to be a bit more like, I guess like pedantic, the state does produce things. It produces violence, depression, and war, and like a division amongst people and harmful things towards us. So but as you
but
said, that skills, it's not a good thing. It's not.
those things don't produce anything. They just take from others.
I know,
That's
yeah.
the point, though. The state is a parasite. In order
Yeah,
for
well,
this
I'm not arguing
parasitism
against
to
that.
work, it needs participation from the public. It needs more slaves. It needs more workers. So the
Yeah,
root
so
cause of it is still human procreation.
yeah, it is. Yeah, because like if you don't have human capital, then like what is the state gonna use as like to like enslave or bribe you and stuff
But
like that? Like, I just don't see like how like we are worthwhile and yet we're pretty worthless because like we can just because we don't fight this system and yet it still wants us alive because as I said, I can't do what I want to do because like someone is legally obligated to stop me. And of course we have LA's thing, where like people are the amount of people who are against LA because of his advocacy is really alarming because like it's not enforcing, it's a voluntarily thing, it's like people still hate that, so it's weird.
They are against me because they realize that they are the state. That's what I'm trying to say. They are
Yeah.
absolutely complicit. They support the state's violence. They support everything the state does. So when I'm speaking against the state, I'm actually speaking against them, and they realize that.
Hmm. Yeah.
thing is that the the government's biggest assets, the people, is also their biggest enemy. The people. The government's entire existence revolves around controlling people, waging war with people, and trying to make sure that people don't overthrow them. That's their biggest threat is us.
No, they're not a threat. These people are just docile. They're
No,
sheepish. They're
that's
not going to do anything.
I'm not even talking about these people or those. I'm just talking about people in general. There are people who are more capable than others. But the fact is that in the eyes of every state ever, every single person is a variable that they have to control.
yeah, and like they're doing it pretty easily because most people are they don't have like a fighting spirit in them. They're just cattle. So I don't think they see us as a threat largely. Even the people who speak out, like they can easily be like psychologically manipulated to be curtailed back into this system of control, technique, and propaganda. So like I still kind of have to ask, like, how are we a threat? Like how do we have any revolutionary vitality to have this when like there could be 2% of the population that has fighting spirit. What about the other 98% that will stop us and our obstacles and our massive ones? And even though they also hate the government, guess what? Their own psychological enslavement and barriers act as a kind of like indirect weapon against us. So in a way, slaves are also like the assets of the government because like they act on their will without even knowing it, enforcing things on us.
The government relies on mind control. That's what the word government means. So they need everyone to adhere to the way that they want them to think so that they become more predictable. If the people could just be more or less predictable, by the day or the week or the year or whatever, the government would actually lose control because they can't anticipate the people's movements any longer.
But the people are predictable. There's nothing unpredictable about the American people. You can control them like a fucking fiddle.
Yes, they are predictable, but there's there is potential for unpredictability.
Where's this potential? Can you substantiate that? Because I'm not
There
seeing it.
could there
The
could be for like
fact,
one or
the
two groups, but
facts
not
that
for everyone.
what's the population of the United States? Like 350 million people.
350 million, yeah, and
There's a
like the
lot of
majority of them,
unpredictable variables right there.
I don't think it's a wait. I don't think it's even like 100,000. I think to be charitable, it's like 5,000 people that have like like invariables, and the rest of them are just complicit slaves because the Americans are some of the biggest consumers of like fast food, media, drugs, pharmaceuticals, SSRIs. Uh, yeah, like it's like half of the population is on freaking SSRIs, antidepressants. So clearly, a freaking drug is literally stopping half of the American population from literally blowing up their own brains. So yeah, like I don't think they have any type of like nuance or depth to them, and they're just good slaves. If I'm gonna be honest.
I mean, if you want to just choose to be hopeful just because you want to be optimistic, that's fine. But I think that's your personal perspective. I don't think there's any objective reason to have hope because the American people are not demonstrating that they're actually going to do anything to change their circumstances.
Well, let me ask you this, LA. Okay, here's my question. Do you think that human history is linear, similar to what Hegel describes with his Geist, and that, history is moving towards the final location? Or do you think that it's more secular and in alignment with the Kali Yuga, and that we're just kind of in these patterns of um, enlightenment and ignorance,
Pretty
or
much.
maybe
Like
something else?
sorry. So like, do you
I
think?
think that the government controls the way people think. I don't think that it is random at all. I think that they are just slaves who can't think for themselves, who can't maintain their own lives. I think it's a system of total subjugation, and I don't think there's any hope out of it.
And to answer that question, is time like either like a line or a circle, pretty much? I don't know, to be honest with you. I've seen so many theories about like historiography of time, and the way I view it is that, like, I know this might like ruffle some feathers here for the more esoteric types, but I don't think like that our view of time matters because like it's already being controlled, the information. Like I'm such like a very I think that like we have been corroded by like external factors so much that like I don't even think our own thoughts belong to ours anymore. Very few does. So who knows what is the true nature of time? Because like our own epistemic has been corrupted by ourselves and by the government and by social factors as well.
So when
Well,
people are
I
being fucked over by the government, what are they supposed to do? They can't go to the courts. The American people are not going to do anything to protect them. And so, what are they actually supposed to do in that real situation?
well, the courts are literally that. They're a game played by two parties with a referee or judge and a public opinion or spectator who judges the result in the jury. It's like a basketball game or something. But Basically, we shouldn't play games to determine people's fates.
What is the person supposed to do when they get fucked over? Are they supposed to just accept it and just live another 50 years of getting fucked over? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
No, this is
No,
why I say
but
to
I
be
mean,
unpredictable.
but you support procreation and you don't necessarily support medical assistance in dying. So basically, the person would be relegated to continue being fucked over.
When it comes to medical assistance in dying, there's nothing that I can really think of that I would be against it from the perspective of natural law. My biggest concern would be that it has potential to get hijacked by death cult type organizations who could convince people who probably shouldn't kill them or, in themselves to do it.
Well, that's
But
why
shouldn't it be their choice, though? Like, what if I just what did David Hume said? No man ever took his life while it was still worth preserving.
yeah, that's very true. And like, of course, and like, I think for like the idea it could be hijacked, LA, I think you kind of answered that with like it's a privatized thing, so like not just anyone can join, right? And like it's almost like a type of like cooperative type of system, no, but still very decentralized, right?
So whose decision should it be? Should it be the state's decision? Should it be your decision, or should it be the individual's decision?
It should be the individuals, but all I'm trying to point out is that, let's say like some organization comes together and they have some funding and, they're pushing this narrative that, you should kill yourself, um, end yourself if,
Careful.
yeah, if, something bad is going on in your life or you think that you can't handle it anymore or this sort of stuff, they could come along and convince people who are maybe younger and don't know any better to maybe do it
I
or
think
go along.
that's what like the other person said, who I don't like. He said that what if it gets hijacked by someone, and what if like they quell people, like younger people? Well, that kind of goes with like, well, those young people shouldn't be here because like if they're young, they're like, their parents should have brought them here, right, or something like that. But like I think another way we can view it is that like if we have like strict privatization or like some type of like cooperative, confederate type of like privatization, then I don't think there's much of like there's like smaller rooms for it to be hijacked.
I don't see how anybody can call themselves an anarchist and support procreation, because procreation does nothing but further the state. You're
Yeah.
literally giving the state subjects to oppress, to control, and to extract from. So I think that if you're an anarchist, you probably necessarily have to be an anti-nihilist.
I don't know.
Unless you have some secret information for how you're going to have children who don't have to live under the state.
It's gonna be hard to like
Well,
not.
you could go. I mean, there would be a lot of risk involved, but you could go out into the wilderness and have a natural birth free of a birth certificate.
Okay, but the wilderness is still under the state.
It is under the state. Most of like
Yeah.
U.S. like, forests are under like federal control, right? Am I correct? I think they are under like federal control. Like even Henry David Thoreau, like Walden, right? That wasn't just free land. That was owned by his friend Ralph Waldo Emerson. Like it wasn't even like a free land. It was owned by someone already. It was already a property of someone. He just used it, and yeah, that's it. And like he wasn't that much of like a freedom. He I like him, but like he did have access towards like still like like a village, like about like 30 miles away from him. So he still
Well,
had access.
what Henry David Thoreau says is that the social contract was only bonding on the generation that actually agreed to it. It's not bonding on subsequent generations. So the fact that we were born after these other people agreed to it does not make it bonding on us. The social contract is illegitimate.
Yeah,
I agree.
unless like a another like rejuvenation revolution, but we all know that's not going to happen possibly, you know.
Well,
So
Ali, you were asking about hope, and the reason I asked that question about the Geist and the Kali Yuga cycle is because if you think that we live in this linear progression of history, then maybe there's not much hope for you, under that paradigm. But, if you think in terms of like a Kali Yuga cycle, then the hope would be that the age of ignorance will end and that an age of freedom and enlightenment will begin again.
yeah, so it pretty much goes within like the philosophy of time, like which one do you follow? Yeah, and like I think there's more than just way of viewing that. Like there's also the triangular view of time that's like each time can stay forever and ever and ever. And it'll be like a rapid shift that like humans cannot control it. I think it was I forget who said that. I think it was Oswald Spengler that like said something like that. And his view of time was pretty pessimistic, although it was in the circle. I can't say that word right now because of my speech impediment. Cynical, yeah, just that word, yeah. But like, and there's Hegel, Hegel's view of time. Even though he was also optimistic, he believed that we'll reach absolute rationalization in spirit, and I don't think that that's gonna happen too, because like it's just not like there is no reason for us to think that the lion's share of the human population is going to achieve, like in his word, absolute spirit and rationalization of their own freedom and if their own like a dialectical opportunities.
Let me just answer your question. I don't really care whether human progression is linear or non-linear. I really don't care. I don't care if we're becoming more intelligent, if we're evolving. I don't care about that. I care about the individual. So if the individual has to be sacrificed in order for humans to progress to a state of what a greater intelligence, I don't care about that. I care about the individual. The individual in the process of this progression absolutely matters. So I don't want to be sacrificed just so that humans can evolve to a greater state of existence. That's not my issue at all.
Yeah, and like I think LA, you're an atheist, correct? So like you kind of don't value like those like deep cosmological questions of time, right? Of like always time like either like linear or non-linear,
Right.
right?
The individual matters. What's happening right now actually matters.
Yeah. As for me, like I don't know because like I read a lot and like now that I'm exposed to a lot of information, like I can't really decide on which view of time is more inherently correct than the other. So like and like I don't think like that matters because like as you said, like I look at things more of like an empirical and sociological point of view, like and like I think that we don't have access to like all knowledge and that includes like what's the shape of time because like what if time isn't even real, what if we're just like a procession of things happening all at once and that's it, because like there's also like presentism, which is like there's only the present that exists now and the past and future don't exist anymore. Eternalism, which is like the universe and time is always eternal. Or there's like the fact that like the past is not real anymore, it's only the future. So yeah, it depends. I think I'm leaning towards like a presentist point of view, that is all things happen at once and only the present exists, so like there's not much room to have like a theory of time for me or a shape of time for me.
Time to me is spatial, and it's basically it's just another spatial coordinate that pushes us through or moves us through height, width, and depth, or the 3D like a vehicle. And it is basically like Fatima said, is everything at once. And then we kind of navigate ourselves within time to make choices based within the limitations of our own agency.
Yeah, but like to me, if it's everything at once, there's no reason for it to think it's like a cycle or like non-linear or even linear, because like everything is kind of like vertical. Like everything is happening in like a straight box. It's like a box. Everything happens, past, present, and future. It's all happening in one box. There is no like cycle or like linear even for me.
I just think this is too abstract. It's too theoretical.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just want to focus on a person who exists right now, who is suffering right now.
yeah. That's
Why
one
don't
thing.
those people actually matter?
Yeah,
Well,
like it,
you're talking LA, you don't care if people get more intelligent, but civilizations actually make people weaker and less intelligent.
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, well
Absolutely.
if they were so intelligent, they would stop procreating.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, if they were actually intelligent, they would realize, hey, if I keep feeding the machine, they'll get stronger. I will deprive it from not breeding.
Right, but if they were intelligent, they would realize that the only way to stop all suffering and death is to stop procreating. But most humans are not smart enough to realize that. They're
Yeah,
weak. They're no smarter than animals. No smarter than cats and dogs. They're going to do exactly what all other animals do.
yeah, and like as what David Hume said, humans are creatures of passion and emotion, not reason. David Hume said that reason is but a slave to passions. So humans could use their small semblance of reason to come up with like, hey, certain things are not good, and they empower my enslavement. I'm not gonna do them, but no, they rather follow their own like primitive passions, such as like enjoying things. The dopamine hits, from any variety of sources, whether it's appropriate for me to say here or not. You know what I'm trying to say.
By the way, I'm not even sure like what motivated you to become an anarchist in the first place. What motivated me is that I have actually experienced real state oppression. I came to the realization that the state does not serve my interests based on lived experience. So I don't know what your lived experience is, but the same reason that I'm an anarchist is the same reason that I'm an anti-nihilist, because it is a system of total enslavement.
Well, for me, it just comes down to uh, I used to like the government. Well, I did not used to like the government, but I liked the military, and I wanted to join the military. And then I learned about natural law and realized that it was all bad.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you were to have children right now, or whatever, what kind of life do you think your children would have? Do you think they would actually be free from state oppression?
Well, I'm not going to have children right now.
Okay,
Probably
but you may have children at some point, right? Because you haven't put that off the table.
Mm. Yeah,
maybe.
like I
So,
think
what
that.
kind of life do you think your children would have?
Well, I can't say for certain, but I would try and limit them from going to public schools and being corrupted by ideas of other people.
What kind of life would they have as adults? I'm not even talking about childhood, because
There's
you don't.
no way for me to know that.
Well, of course, yeah. So like, if
Well,
you
you
can
do
even
know
know.
that because you know the system that they would be born into, and they would be controlled by the state.
Mm,
Okay, so if we want like the
They
basic,
would it would be a life of total subjugation, where they would be using the state's currency. They would not have any rights. If the state violate their rights, they would go to court, and the case would be dismissed. So it would be a sitting duck, just like me, just like everybody else.
huh. If I can add, like, I know what in the future my kids are going to have, even though I can't have them because, like, for obvious reasons, I can't have them. But like, yeah, they're going to be enslaved. No matter where I go in the world, they're going to have a McDonald's, an iPhone. Even if I go bush, right? What if my kids one day want to be like, hey, I want to like see like like I want to see like the city. I want to eat McDonald's. I want to like make friends because I'm friends with somebody from outside of our small commune. they say my name and like, come on, dad, come on, come on, like parent. And, dad, that doesn't make sense for me to call myself dad, but like, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, like I can tell what future my kids are going to have if I do have them, which I don't want to have them. So yeah. What else was I going to say? Yeah, because like, and things are becoming more and more technocratic. AI is literally everywhere. There's now flock cameras now. Yeah, that's like a new thing now from this year. Flock cameras. That's gonna be everywhere now. Like it's not just China or Russia. It's now America. It's especially the UK. I think the UK is more authoritarian than Russia at this point because more people go to jail for social media posts in the UK than in Russia, if you can believe it. So yeah, like and I think that's going to happen to America soon. You can't talk bad about a certain country. You can't talk bad about certain people. You can't talk bad about anyone, about most people. Yeah, and like that's what's just going to happen.
But and I want to ask you a question because you said you're going to basically you would raise your children to respect natural law. Okay, I'm a proponent of natural law and natural rights. I'm well versed in natural law. What what good has that done me? It does not, because the state has a monopoly on violence, and whether I believe in natural law or not does not prevent me from being a victim of state violence. So your children can be raised to believe in natural law and never be a victim of state violence, just like I am. What difference would it change? Like, how would it change their lives? They still, the only difference would be that they would be aware of their natural rights, and they would actually be more traumatized by it because their natural rights are not legally enforceable and they're not recognized. So they would actually be better off being ignorant and thinking that the system is fair than having that awareness of natural rights and have their natural rights being violated.
Well, from a materialist perspective, it's not obvious what the benefits are, but the benefits are essentially that we will develop characteristics of a strong, independent ego who cares about what is right, which will last or carry over to our spiritual essence.
What was I gonna say?
So they shouldn't care about what happens to them. They should just focus on their spirit.
Well, no, the spirit is here now. So what happens to them is technically happening to their spirit. But
Yeah.
What's happening to them here is not an experience that they can typically have as a spirit. Right? It's a learning experience where we learn to live in alignment with our own principles, to offer our own lives and respect other people's ability to do so.
I
Yeah,
don't
but
understand what you're saying. You can choose to respect other people's natural rights, but if they don't respect yours and they have a monopoly on violence, then what difference does it make?
yeah, it doesn't make much of a difference, unfortunately. And like
But
as I said, I don't think the majority of people have the capacity, either psychologically, intellectually, or morally, to like reform themselves to understand that they are their own ownership. And now we have like certain groups now that want to like take away that idea. Oh no, you don't even have self ownership because like I believe certain people should be like expelled from things. So like, what do we say about that? Like because like if I'm gonna be honest here, I can understand that point of view that certain groups of people, they have patterns and trends in them. Like, yeah, I don't really want that around me. And like it's not just one specific, it's
It basically
multiple.
makes you a sacrificial animal because you're going to respect their rights. You're going to leave them alone, mind your business, but they're going to inflict violence against you and use the state against you. So you're actually more vulnerable. That's why my philosophy says the opposite, that I only respect the natural rights of those who respect my natural rights. I believe in mutualism. So if you're an anarchist and you're not going to violate my rights, then I won't violate yours. But if you're going to be a statist and use the state violence against me, then I have every right to use state violence against you. I will report you. I will have you thrown in a cage. I will have your livelihood taken away the same way you would do that to me. So they want to use occupational licensing to prevent me from earning a livelihood. Then I'm going to do the same fucking thing to them. I will report them to the police. I will have them beaten the same way they would have done to me.
There you go. An eye for an eye. I do kind of believe in an eye for an eye sometimes, not all the time, but like if the system that is enslaving me is so beyond repair and demoralizing, then yes, I will do everything within my small minimal vital power to actually get back at those people. I don't care if they're like if they have their own like natural law as well. Like no, you're violating me so much, I am going to take that away from you now because you're taking it away from me. So I don't think everyone's natural rights or law or self ownership should be respected because they could be not so nice people, to put it very, very lightly.
Well, under those circumstances, Fatima, then if they have disrespected the ability of other people to interact in the world, then they have basically voided their rights, their
Oh,
natural
there you go.
rights.
So okay, so we do agree on that. I think LA would agree that yes, if you have violated that alleged, law principle, then yes, you will be. It's voided for you, and it's fair game to what happens to you in terms of consequences from others. That you have violated yourself. Because I'm not sure if I should even talk about this, but the court case that happened with the CEO, I think we all know what I'm talking about, right? The CEO incident, yeah, like that's going to happen more now. But even that's not enough because like that was only one person in like New York, and I'll say that much because like I don't want to get
I,
like
I think that's bullshit too. I think that the way that they're uh, championing him as some type of hero. There was a black guy who jumped up and attacked this judge, and he got thrown in
yeah,
prison. And there's no type of media campaign around him. So why would
Right.
you celebrate the killing of a healthcare CEO, but a judge gets attacked, and a judge is far more violent than a CEO, and
yeah.
nobody's saying that this other guy is a hero?
Right, it's weird, right? Like that, like literally the judges keep the CEO in power because like you would think the CEO doesn't have like law powers. They only have like hard power of like influence and money. But the judges actually have the power to quell things if they want to, but they don't. So yeah, who knows?
Right, and the judge's orders are literal acts of violence. That judge is putting hits out on people to send the state agents to go inflict violence. So
Yeah,
the judge is far more violent than a healthcare CEO. Uh, what is his name? What's his name? Mario or Luigi, whatever the fuck his name is.
yeah, his name, yeah. Yeah, it was the green Mario brother, yeah. Luigi, yeah.
He basically said that the CEO deserved it because I guess he caused all these people to die. I don't agree with that either. I don't think that's all these socialists agree with that. I don't believe that. I believe that you get, first of all, these socialists support occupational licensing in the first place. So you gave them a monopoly over their legal profession, and now that they have a monopoly, they get to charge whatever prices they want because you gave them that power, and now you want to blame them as if you're not also responsible for it. So these
Yeah,
people
like
are hardcore statists, and they need to be pointing the fingers at themselves.
yeah, like it's weird that like conventional leftists and socialists and like more so democratic socialists, right? In America, because there is no true left wing in America. More so democratic socialists who like rile up Luigi, even though like what they want is just reform and not actual dismantling of the freaking system. It's like what the hell you guys are doing and are you guys gonna like a petition for him to get out? No, you're just gonna let him like stay there. Like it doesn't make any sense, like. And as we said, like these these like democratic socialists, guess what? The majority of them have kids, so like it doesn't make sense. Like you guys still effectively support your enslavement because like you still breed people, and thus like you kind of give like the incentive for these CEOs and more powerfully the judges and more broadly the system to just enslave you and like do harm you. And it
And
takes
they
like
don't even realize like Karl Marx's actual agenda. Uh, who was the other guy that Karl Marx was writing with?
Frederick Engels.
Right. In those secret letters with Engels, he actually said what his true agenda was, and they don't know this. These so-called socialists are very ill-read.
You can say that again, yeah. And like I used to be one, but like the majority of the ones I meet online, especially from like the West and America, yeah, they don't really know like the nuances of like the thoughts of like Marx and Engels, because like there's much more nuance than just like, oh, abolishment of private property. Like they have like an actual method of critique of like dialectics like anyone can use, because dialectics is not just from Marx or Hegel. It's an old Greek math, not math. It's an old Greek logical thing. So yeah, but still though, like Luigi is not like a hero to me, because like we still have those CEOs and those, especially those. How come he didn't go after a judge? Is my question. Like those people are very corrupt. Even like they have more power than CEOs, because like the judges should like give those people like some like checks and balances, and they don't. They just let them run free. And like if you do go to the court of CEOs, guess what? The judges will side with the CEO than with you. You know.
Speaking of the medical stuff, did you see me on Objective Ethics LA
Oh,
with those doctors?
now doctors in quotations.
I saw parts of it, but I didn't see the whole thing. I came in kind of late, and then I was still at work, so I couldn't listen to it.
Well, it was kind of BS because, like, first of all, I, Seth Scales, and some other person, Christine, I'm sure if you still remember her, but like, we were all timed out like multiple times, like, oh, he's mods. Yeah.
I remember what he had this guy. I know I didn't agree with like almost anything that he said, but I couldn't. I was at work, so I couldn't comment.
Mm.
I was just asking them, is medicine really better than clean, healthy living? And, I was also pointing out that civilization and cities make people more sick.
Right. It does, of course, yeah. And like, what's funny is that like these illnesses are more like extreme because we live in these freaking high tech societies. We don't grow our own food anymore, guys. Like, of course, we're gonna be a bit more like shittier than like our previous lifetimes, our
I
ancestors.
think the part that I heard was they were talking about COVID, and he was
Yeah.
saying that the problem is that more people need to be vaccinated, and he was against natural immunity. Like I didn't agree with anything he was saying, but I didn't hear the whole thing. I just heard the part about COVID.
Yeah, no, well, what he said was kind of BS, and like what like another thing someone else said there was a mod of OE. She said that children should not enter school or like the public schools if they're not vaccinated. Like she believes in mandatory vaccination. I was like, yo, that's like tyranny right there. Like that's like too much. Like your kids can't even go to school or like go anywhere else if they're not like vaxxed. Like what the hell, you know?
Yeah, and that
The
Dr.
state
Greg guy
forces
was
people to go to
saying,
school.
Wait, what happened, guys? Oh, ooh.
well,
I think
Ellen,
the state forces people to go to school, and then on top of that, they're going to force you to get vaccinated.
Yeah,
It's not as
that's
if
like
people choose to put their children in public school. If
yeah,
they don't have the means to homeschool them, then they have no choice.
yeah,
but
exactly.
that doctor, the other dude took it even a step further and said,
Mhm.
he told me that if people had some sort of communal sickness and the NFL wanted people to get vaccinated to attend their games, then the NFL would have every right to make people be medicated to attend their games.
That was such a stupid example that he gave. Like it's like they're only gonna be there for like 8 hours in that one place. Like, are they really gonna spread that fast? God, like
That's fine because people don't have to go to an NFL game, but we're talking about forcing people to get vaccinated in order to work. They don't have a choice; they have to work in order to survive. So
yeah,
um, that's where the issue was that a lot of employers were forcing people to get vaccinated.
yeah, forcing them against their will, even though they didn't have any signs of COVID or any illness for that matter. And it's a fact that the vaccine had bad side effects. And don't give me that all vaccines have bad side effects, but they don't really cause such like strong amounts of like a nausea in you as the COVID vaccines did. So yeah. And just the fact that like in Canada they literally froze like your bank account, if you didn't follow the COVID guidelines there. Like it's obvious that like this was pretty badly like managed, probably orchestrated for some
This,
reason. Who knows?
but Saskel, that just proves my point that these people are hardcore statists. They are authoritarians.
Yeah, they
Once you
are.
put your children in the system, they want complete control. They want to force you to get vaccinated. They want to control how you live your life. And so I know you think that this is a minority, but no, most people think like him. That
Yeah,
guy is a representation of the average American. They do
exactly.
want state control over everything.
Unfortunately, it's not even in America. Like, and the other show all of us used to be on,
Um,
they follow COVID like restrictions and guidelines. The host of that show said that like COVID was a real issue, and I'm like, oh brother, like no, it's not. Like, and the vaccines were not good.
I don't think that most people want this. I would say at the very least, it has to be the majority. So 51% at least of the people must desire violence and slavery.
Yes,
But
it's more than 51%. They do
yeah,
support violence and slavery.
and another thing is that like they don't have to say that they don't like it in order to still support it. As I said, most people are cowardly. Like they don't speak out against it, or they do, and then they go back to work literally the next hour. It's such a sense of like a delusion. It is. Most people are just lying to themselves. Yeah, that's what makes it even worse is that they know and yet they don't do anything. They still live out their lives, die in this state of enslavement. They get on retirement, welfare, nursing home, boom, 6 feet underground, even though they hated this system allegedly.
I don't know if you're aware of Noam Chomsky's work on manufactured consent, but that's why we don't have a real democracy because the media and the education system manipulates them, and then they basically do whatever they're told. So all you have to do is stir up panic and fear about COVID, and you can get them to support whatever policy you want. It doesn't come from the people, it comes from whatever indoctrination, but they still get manipulated into supporting whatever policy you want. You can get them to support war, support any type of policy that goes against their rational self-interest, and they will absolutely get on board. They're sheep. They can be controlled and manipulated just like a damn puppet. They're
Clay
not
though,
rational human beings.
just like clay, like humans, like the majority of humans are clay to me. Like they can easily be morphed and molded into whatever opinion you want. Even the ones who claim to be self-rational and self and free thinkers, those are the most susceptible to it. Jack Alul, I know TMO is watching this. What's up? He said this: the most educated are actually the most susceptible to propaganda. That makes so much sense because Dr. Greg is an alleged PhD, and yet here he is spouting, what is obviously not very good propaganda. It's just very, very unique, to see this application being played out in real time, as we saw a few days ago on OE's channel. Like, even the most educated, because over there, I like Odie, by the way, but like, it is real that like they do say that like, oh, trust the experts, trust the science, always trust them over anyone else. Even though, what if that anyone else actually has grievances within that thing, and we do have grievances, and they are real because like it's been confirmed that like, yeah, like the doctors during COVID weren't so honest, and it was a lot of restrictions, like bank accounts were frozen, people were raided and even arrested for this stuff, for breaking those restrictions, speaking out against the protocols.
That's why you have to go with the root cause. You have to start with procreation. Because once the person is here, they're going to make appeals to necessity. They're going to say that more government control is necessary to keep everybody safe. They're going to change your life into a dystopian hellscape, because, and they think that is for your benefit. So they can justify any authoritarianism and say that it's for your safety. They don't care about freedom. That's why you cannot put your children in this fucking matrix.
Yeah. And like another thing I want to say about that too is that like, even people who read a lot, right? Alul said this too in propaganda. People who read a lot, they read a lot of books. They seem well read. Oh, because you read a lot of books means you're well read and smart. Not really. If you don't think critically about the information you just read, whether by books or by articles, by PhD articles, or like docs, you're not really that smart. And I think that's what the majority of what people on that show does, is that like they read a lot, but they don't really think critically. They don't want to go against the grain of their own, established norms in their heads. They think they're following the empirical data. And here's the thing: I believe in empiricism. I am an empiricist, but a true empiricist look at both sides of like the coin, both that support the data and go against, and thus you make your own, you make your own evaluations on it. You just don't say, oh, just trust the experts on this 100%. No, that's not how actual empirical inquiry is done.
Well, he said it was humbled to do so, and it's being humbled to recognize what you don't know and trust those who do know what they're talking about in the subjects and disciplines you explicitly don't know about.
Right, yeah. That was not a very shining demonstration of that channel's thing. I like it overall, but still not a very good example of having that kind of person on. Yeah, I agree
I
with that,
did,
soccer star.
I did pretty much the opposite because, I actually don't really know much about biology or vaccines or anything like that. I just went on
Yeah,
there and asked them questions.
yeah. And I'm actually surprised that they were more cordial, because like if someone like us comes along, because I don't know much about that vaccines either. And I've talked to, like, I've spoken on other panels before where like I say, yeah, I'm not much well read on like the actual like science of vaccines, and they tell me, then why are you even speaking about it? I'm like, well, because like I've seen other legitimate people, doctors, that speak out against this protocol, and how come you're not taking them into consideration? And then they go, and then they play the like, oh, those are just the exceptions, the fringes, the conspiracy theorists, as they like to say, shit like that. They'll just write enough and like, dude, these people went to the same systems and institutions you went to, and you're calling them BS. Then how come I don't call you BS? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because they're not the ones getting paid the grant money.
Right there, that's where it comes down to. Just monetary value and monetary mobility and like security. Follow the money, they say.
I just have to ask a question about Restream because I can see people's comments, but how do I respond to them on my phone?
Yeah, I'm seeing their comments here on the chat, but I can't respond to them and like the restream thing. Yeah, it's kind of not
Well,
very.
I could go back to using StreamYards, but I would have to do content more regularly in order to get my sponsor. I don't know. It's just that I have so much going on. I can't really say for sure. And it's like every time, if I don't do content like every 2 or 3 days, I start losing subscribers. It's just like I can't really keep up with it because I have way too much going on right now.
No, and that's understandable. But then again, like I don't think you should care about like the sub count. You should care about like promoting your ideas and talking to people that want to engage, genuinely and authentically want to engage with them. I think that's what should matter more. But that's just me though. Like you might have other priorities, and it is like your channel too.
No,
So
I want my channel to be monetized so that when I need
oh
to pay for things like StreamYard, then that actually pays for itself.
yeah,
I don't want to
yeah,
have to
that makes
keep
sense. Yeah.
like paying out of my pocket or doing all this other shit. So
Hmm. Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. Damn, that does seem a bit, kind of like tough to
if I
navigate.
make money, then I can invest it back in my channel and I can make better content. But I don't want to pay for it out of my pocket.
Yeah, because if StreamYard is it's not cheap. I've heard it's not cheap. I heard.
So the
It's
the lowest the lowest plan you can get on StreamYard is like $45 a month.
oh okay. $45 a month. Okay. Because like I was thinking, if I get more financially secured and shit, I might stream myself. But that's still a long ways because I'm not financially secured at all. So yeah. And like, yeah, I just saw that comment from Soccer Star. Yes, YouTube is going down the drain horribly too. The algorithm is horrible. Channels are getting like copyright strike for not doing anything at all, or like they do something a bit risque, and then boom, your channel is gonna get terminated within 3 days. You better start packing, buddy.
It's going down the drain because of all the censorship that people can't speak freely. It
Yeah,
used to
exactly.
actually be fun back in the day when you could just say whatever you wanted. But I think my channel would actually be better if I could literally say whatever I wanted to say. But I have to use euphemisms and talk around shit. It's just not as good as it possibly could be.
Yeah, it's not like you can't say the S word. You can't tell someone to like off. That you can't tell anyone that you can't say certain words on here like the S word, the K word, F word. Wouldn't mind just saying the N word here and there. I'm joking. I'm not sure. You know what I mean, right? Like I don't mind just saying the F word. Like I don't mind saying the F word here and there. I say it all the time in my own private life. And by the F word, I mean like the ones for like LGBT people.
Yeah, I almost wish I could have talked to Dr. Greg. I'm not sure how being anti vax is a conspiracy. The bottom
It's
line is that people should have a choice on what goes in their body. So if you are the one who thinks that people should be forced to get vaccinated,
yeah.
you are the conspiracy theorist because you're going off bad science, and the CDC has already retracted their initial statements about COVID.
There
So
you go.
the Supreme Court has already ruled on this issue that employers cannot force the employees to get vaccinated.
Nope.
So that's the only reason that this issue is not even
Debatable.
right. Is because before they were trying to force people, and that's the
Yeah.
reason why nobody's talking about the vaccinations anymore because employers can't force their employee. And I already knew this. I had before the Supreme Court even ruled on this issue. I had already made content about it under the Americans with Disabilities Act. It has a privacy provision which prevents employers from asking questions like, "Are you vaccinated?"
Well, you see, Ale, Dr. Greg actually gave his reasoning to what you just asked, and he says that it's a public safety issue, basically, and that, you know, if we don't get these vaccines, then we're just going to be throwing people into wood chippers, theoretically, ending them. And it's just like, it's like murder. He basically equated it to murder if people don't get
No,
vaccinated.
procreation is like murder. This is what I'm talking about. So once they procreate and put you in the system, then they have all these appeals to necessity about how you should lose your rights because the public is going to be harmed if you don't capitulate and do whatever the hell they say. So the only thing you can do is not put your children in the system in the first place. I don't give a shit about public safety. I care about my individual rights.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Yeah. Yeah, like those guys over there, like they are not keeping up with like the actual social developments that like yes, the CDC retracted because yes, it was a bit scandalous how COVID protocol was done. And and like the vaccines are not mandatory anymore because like why should they be mandatory for even having like your slave wage job? Like it doesn't mean anything. Like it literally makes no sense. And those guys, I don't know. I like
And if
them.
they supported my right to medical assistance in dying, then there would be no need for a vaccination. But they don't support that. They want to leave me a sitting duck so they can fucking control me.
Yeah, right. Like they don't support. I mean, people like them do not support euthanasia, which would end, people who don't want the vaccinations. They would see them as like, because for some reason those kind of people think people who don't follow the experts or don't take the vaccines, they see them as like lesser than. And it's true. Like they see them as like uninformed, backwards, unintelligent. Not them, but like people like them, they do. They think they're better than everyone else. So I was like, well, if you think you're better than me, why not give me the access to like a maid and we'll be done with it, Because I don't want to be cooperated in your freaking old.
And by the way, I just went under general anesthesia because I had this surgery. If I had, I mean, just say this because if I didn't wake up, I don't think that I would have lost anything. I would feel deprived, like it. I just would not be here. I would not suffer anymore. So for all those people who think that they're protecting the vulnerable, like, yeah, just give me the general anesthesia, and then I don't have to wake up. Like, I didn't feel any pain. I had no awareness of what was going on. I don't understand what harm could I experience from not waking up.
I'm not gonna lie, like I used to be on like anesthesia because last year I went to like the dentist a lot, and yeah, it does feel kind of like good,
Local anesthesia or general anesthesia, you're completely out. You don't even you're
I've
not
only
even
had
aware.
I've only had like local anesthesia, but even that felt, like as like I suffer from like chronic like neck pain, and like that kind of reaches like my mouth and my teeth, like the nerve pain. So like to have that like being like subdued for a bit, like it was very nice, You know. Now imagine like the general one.
I mean, that would solve the problem. I'm not sure why what they're talking about Canada. They can still feel pain and all this other bullshit. I would say give them anesthesia first, and then follow up with whatever medication they actually need.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and also like
Well,
people say,
I'm
hmm,
gonna have to go.
oh yeah, yeah, I'm kind of
This
hungry. I think I'm
talking-
gonna make my orzo rice pasta soon. So yeah, but yeah,
All right.
this
Well,
talking-
you all have a good day,
you too,
and
Ellie.
yeah, we need to work on this legal system because it's bullshit, and I don't
It is
think there is
bullshit.
any hope.
Yeah, and once again, LA, thank you for always streaming. I mean, for streaming whenever you can. I do like these talks with you, Dom, and anyone else who joins. It's much more nice.
All right, I appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
See you guys. Bye.
Later.